Guess is the fun, the thrill. There she is.
So, funny story, I had to do it on my phone, on my computer, wasn't working. So, I love technology.
I do find it interesting for all the Facebook executives that are watching this right now. Maybe they could figure out a way to make the phone interface and the computer interface a little more, I don't know, similar, easy to find. So
a little more obvious.
A little more obvious.
But yeah,
hey,
the phone works really, really well. So
okay.
I'm going to try to stabilize my phone now. Sorry, guys. So hopefully that works. Okay. All right. So you have some questions and things you want to talk about with lip products and skincare?
It doesn't even have to be just lip products. So first, so you can hear me okay? You're good?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me fine?
Yes. Yes, we're good. All right. So those of you that stuck with me for those first 2 minutes, thank you. Yeah. So you are a chemist, but that can mean a lot of things. You're a chemist that sort of specializes in. Is this just skincare? Do people come to you with other projects, or how does that work? Maybe just a little bit of your background and what led you to where you are now.
How about if I give you a background? I'll give you the background. So I have been a chemist. I got my degree back in 1994. So there's some dates for you. I started out in pharmaceuticals, so new drug development, and then worked my way over into personal care. So if you look me up on LinkedIn, I have a lot of weird publications in the field of neuroscience, pain research.
Really?
So I did a lot of that kind of work. And then at some point, my husband said, hey, let's move to Iowa. And I worked for the University of Iowa in academic research, and then decided that that really wasn't where I wanted to be, and found myself working for a contract manufacturer that we both know. That's where we met, right? And it ended up moving over to personal care. So we actually do a lot of different things here. So we do quite a bit of lip balm and personal care and anhydrous formulas, but we also do shampoos, conditioners, and that type of thing. And we've been branching out and doing quite a bit of HI&I, which is household and industrial formulations, mainly because there's a big social media push for the HI&I products to be more skin friendly. And so people are looking for that type of thing. And then we do a lot of new raw material evaluations, which that can get a little bit interesting. So we look at potential new raw materials. Are they going to be useful? What are they going to be useful for? And we do that for the big raw material suppliers.
So when you say we, you used to work.
Me and my mouse. No. So we have, I have another chemist that works with me. Her name is Jenny DeSoto, and Jenny is from most recently P&G. Her and I have similar backgrounds in that she also started in the pharmaceutical industry, actually started the same company as I did, just a different division. And she's younger than I am, so a lot later than I did. So we did cross paths there. We actually crossed paths at the contract manufacturer that I met you through.
Right. So you've worked in large, I guess I'd call it corporate settings, and now you're basically, do you call yourself an entrepreneur? Do you call yourself just a small?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be very entrepreneurial to be it for people thinking I want to be a cosmetic chemist. You have to be very entrepreneurial because you have to think like somebody who's launching a brand. Even though it's not you personally, it's not us that are personally launching the brand, we're doing it for other people. You still have to think about that. So for example, if somebody came and said, hey, I want to design a product for teenagers, and I want to make this bright, beautiful colored lip balm with lots of fancy flavors, you've got to think about that and what kind of experience you think that age group is going to want versus, let's say, our age group. We want different things, and you're a musician, and so you created your brand for that specific group of people at first, and then you kind of look at how you can branch that out into other areas.
Right. So I assume you prefer working more for yourself as opposed to working in a corporate setting. And that probably depends on what the setting is, but I would also say that probably is what helped you get a list of contacts or a network to start your own business.
Right. So, I am fairly well known in the cosmetic industry, and I have my own Facebook page called Unicorn Chemist, where sometimes I post things like how to control blooming of shea butter, or how to stabilize, for people who are maybe DIYers and thinking they're going to, because you started at that point, you started as, making it yourself, right? And so I'll post like the microscope. I have some microscope images of how shea butter bloom starts that makes that famous grit that you and I both love.
Right. We won't talk about that. But.
So, but we, so I have that Facebook page, and so people know me for that. And when I left that contract manufacturer, I had several companies that basically called me shortly after I left and helped me start this. Plus the fact that I actually, maybe you know this, maybe you don't, I have an uncle who used to own a raw material distributor for cosmetic products.
Okay.
And he's not really my uncle by blood, but my uncle. Anyway, he actually helped me to work with the raw material suppliers. So we actually do still work with 3 raw material distributors and one main one, but then we work with their suppliers, so to speak. So like we might do some work for a silicone manufacturer who's trying to figure out how to improve the look of silicones in a formula, or we might look at help a natural product supplier with something that maybe it's a material that they were going to throw away, or so it had no use before. Can we use that, and how would we use it? So we do that kind of stuff too for them, and then we create formulas that other chemists can start with.
Right. That's a pretty impressive list of core competencies, actually, and things that you do, and probably not a lot of people do as well, or that have that many things that you're an expert in. That's what I think is really cool. So just if anyone's just joining us now, I'm talking to chemist Tammy Lisi, and of course anyone wants to type in a question, please do so, but I have a few. So let's start with lip balm, because that's my world. And as you and I discussed, my product happens to be all natural and has a lot of organic ingredients. I am proud of that. I think that's cool. I think it's a nice marketing tool. But poison ivy is a natural ingredient. just because something's natural.
It was arsenic.
Right. I mean, the list goes on. There's so many things that are indeed natural, but there's nothing you'd want to ingest or put on your skin. So to be fair, I always kind of approach it that way. Yes, natural ingredients are great only if they are helpful. And to be fair to the more chemically produced products out there, not all those things perhaps that sound really bad are really bad, but then there might be some that in fact maybe shouldn't be. So let me just poke a little fun at
synthetics.
Yeah, well, so for example, the brand everyone knows in my space, there are parabens in it. There's a methylparaben and a propylparaben. And paraben is one of those words that's gotten thrown around in the last, 10 years or so as being bad. Can you comment?
Yeah, so the whole parabens being bad thing started from a fairly inaccurate, now we found is a completely inaccurate paper. And that paper basically looked at breast cancer tumors in women, and they discovered there were parabens in it. And so the conclusion drawn by that paper back in the day, and I want to say that paper was the late 50s, early 60s.
Oh, really?
So it's older.
Well,
Yeah, it's an older paper, and obviously it got picked up a lot in the 90s as a marketing tool, and then we really started thinking about it more recently, and more recently even still we started discovering that there's this thing called the skin's microbiome and that type of stuff. So that's another bit of a topic. But when we talk about parabens, most people assume that they're man-made. The truth is that they are actually occurring in nature. And so the tumors that they found parabens in were naturally occurring parabens from the human body. So when we eat berries and other things, we actually are consuming them. And so the running joke in the industry is there's probably more parabens in a cup of blueberries that you might eat than what would be in your cosmetics. But it's too difficult for most brands to overcome that, except for the fact that you're starting to see Revlon and L'Oreal, who make a lot of mascara, say that there's no safe preservatives because parabens are preventing microbial contamination from product. Anyway, they're saying there's no safe preservatives in mascara unless they can use parabens, because eye safety is a big deal. And so when you're talking about mascara, that's right near the eye. And
right.
as you know, like I think I've had a few of these stories where people go to the like Sephora or someplace and they try a mascara and then or an eye product, and then they end up with an eye infection later
Really?
because those things are highly contagious. But
Okay.
if we most likely if we had parabens in, we'd have a longer shelf life for those products, and we'd have less likelihood of those diseases spreading or reoccurring.
So a paraben is basically a preservative.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's two things that we really look at in skincare for preserving. One is, according to the FDA, we actually do have to prevent microbial contamination. So most commonly now we're starting to see what we call the preservative-free push. Those are ingredients that really control the water activity level in your lotions and creams and things to prevent yeast, mold, E. coli, salmonella,
Right. Things you wouldn't want.
aspergillus, all those things
Right.
from growing. Yeah,
Yeah.
all those really scary words to most people. And staph occurs naturally on your skin. It's what causes acne. So you do need those preservatives to help control what you're putting on. You don't want to put on an excess burden. So, because we know that causes skin disease of some sort. And when I say skin disease, it could be as simple as acne or some other kind of contact dermatitis. So, but in lip balms, they're generally anhydrous. So as long as
Which
they
means
don't have any water. Oh,
anhydrous
it means
means
that they don't have, yeah, anhydrous means they have no water. So most life needs water to live. So when you look at a lip balm, most of them don't have any. So they have no food for a microorganism. So as long as the stick, and we put ChopSaver through this, can withstand an insult of bacteria, yeast, and mold, then we don't worry about whether or not it's going to need a preservative. They're kind of, we call them self-preserving because they're resistant to growth. They're not a really good growth media is what that means.
okay. Interesting.
I know I
But
sometimes get sciencey, so if somebody has a question and need clarification,
yeah,
just let us know.
so clearly there are things that have gotten out there, and you said those studies came out in the 50s and 60s, so this was way before the internet, but it took
Right.
hold. And
When the internet took hold and people started digging through NIH and things like that, yeah. NIH is where most scientists go to research papers. It's the National Institute of Health. Anybody can go there now and just like type in a topic and read as many papers about that as you want.
Interesting. So
Mhm.
again, not all these long, weird names are necessarily bad, but are there some, let me ask you this, are there things that are still being used in the industry that you do wish were eliminated or regulated better?
Yeah, so one thing that is always concerning to me, and I see this happening mostly in the MLM spectrum of the world, where people are selling to their friends. Um, we're starting to see some drugs being used in some of those products, some actual drugs. And
Really?
so, yeah, and so that's a little concerning. For example, we had one recently that has a glaucoma drug in it. That glaucoma drug can actually lead to, if you don't have glaucoma, yes, it grows eyelashes. Yes, it does. It grows them thicker. It can grow up to 3 extra rows of eyelashes.
Really?
Um,
All
it grows
right, so back up.
yeah.
So
So if
you talk about, you talk
if you
about
think about
MLM.
ladies wanting, yeah, they want lots of eyelash, and so these companies put this glaucoma drug in there because it actually does grow eyelashes. But then they had issues because some people were actually having problems with temporary blindness, sagging
Oh,
around the eye, other things that were side effects of this drug.
sure.
And because this company wasn't using it as a drug per se, they weren't having to list the drug facts. So that's a little concerning. So I always get a little concerned when people want to put like athlete's foot powder and in a foot cream to help control, athlete's foot or something like that. Because I do think that that can lead to people not understanding to watch for side effects and control those. Um, but the rest of the cosmetic industry is very well regulated in the US. And obviously in the EU, they have a little different guidelines, and Canada has a little different guidelines. But if you're going with a reputable company that's, has some good sales and things like that, you're going to generally find that all their materials are tested. They've done human repeat insult patch test. That means that they've tested it on people's skin. And as you know, you can then get a dermatologist signature from that. So, and say that it's you can't really say it's non-allergenic, but the dermatologist signature indicates that no one had a reaction out of 50 subjects using that product
So that's the
every day.
standard.
Yeah, that's the standard. So we see that, quite a bit as starting to become like, if you have a dermatologist signature, that's a pretty good, and you sell in dermatology offices.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. Um, yeah. Well, we've never been able to do like clinical trials, but we have scads of anecdotal evidence and dozens, if not hundreds, of
Mm-hmm.
dermatologists that are familiar with the brand, have been using it for years, and so that's where their comfort level comes from. But it sounds to
Right.
me what you're talking about is kind of a loophole in the labeling laws,
Mm-hmm.
that someone's using a drug, but they're not using that drug for what it was designed for. They can literally use it in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we see this most commonly with people that don't want to do sunscreen testing. So they will basically put zinc in a product, but not conduct the sunscreen test.
Okay.
So you really don't know if it's protecting you from the sun. And as we learned about, I think it was 5 years, maybe 6 years ago now, when there was a big recall through one of the large companies because they changed brand of zinc, they ended up sunburning people much faster.
Oh, geez.
So that can be a little bit of a cautionary tale is, yeah, you can throw zinc in a product, but are you going to burn people faster, or are you really going to protect them? So when it comes to things where you really are trying to protect yourself, or you're trying to treat an actual medical condition, a lot of times I do prefer to see the doctors, those little drug fact boxes
Right. Right.
for that thing.
Right. Well, since you brought up SPF, let's quickly touch on that. And I don't know, the arcane or
Yeah.
the bizarre numbering system that we have in this country. You know, I always the
Yeah,
most
30.
basic fact I always tell people is like a 30 is not twice as powerful as a 15, and a 45 is not
No.
3 times as powerful as a 15. So maybe to start with that, and again, we're talking more about labeling issues than the actual ingredients, but it does cause a lot of confusion.
Yeah. So sunscreen stands for the sun protection factor. And then you have these numbers. You have 15, 20, 30, sometimes 33, 36. So that's how many minutes it took for someone to get a burn without reapplication of the product. Okay, so if you think about, you know, an SPF 15 lip balm, you're really probably gonna keep applying that more than every 15 minutes. And when I say someone to get a burn, I mean we have kind of archaic sunscreen testing guidelines, and even the FDA has admitted they're kind of barbaric to the subjects because you do have to burn them. You are actually taking the product and applying it on people and burning them. And so you have to have 10 subjects, as you know, and some of them are fair skinned, some are medium, and some are dark skinned. And so you have to literally, and they have to all be subject to burn. So when I say dark skin, I mean like they still have to be able to burn. So
Right.
it's not very dark skin, right? So when the fairest people start to burn, you know, that's when they start, you know, figuring out the numbers. So if you have like me wearing a lip balm that's an SPF 15, I'm probably going to have to reapply it every 15 minutes. But if I'm outside in the sun in the summer, I probably am reapplying quite often, just because I'm a little addicted to lip balm, which, you know, as you know, people can become addicted to a lip balm product. They feel like that there's a couple things that go into that from a neurochemistry standpoint and from a skin physiology standpoint. But I tend to, when I'm outside working in the sun, become more addicted because I know I'm losing too much moisture through my lips and I'm going to burn faster. So for me, I'm probably going to be okay applying that every 15 minutes. But if you have somebody who's maybe not as prone to burning, an SPF 15, they don't have to apply that every 15 minutes to stop from getting a burn, most likely. They're going to be incredibly safe with that type of product. They're going to be able to apply it as often, you know, when they start to feel their lips drying out and maybe that first tingle, and they're going to escape the burn. So that's kind of a user thing. Now, I know recently the FDA has come and said no more SPF 100s, no more of these really super high SPFs,
Right.
because it's really hard to convince people that they don't have to reapply.
Right.
And the higher you go with your sunscreen number, the harder and more chemicals and more barriers you have to, you know, jump over to get to those numbers from a formulation standpoint.
Right. Right. You have to put in a lot more chemical to get those numbers.
Yeah. You
Then people are
can't,
misinterpreting those
yeah.
numbers as being, oh, I'm good all day or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, like I would love to just put on a product in the morning and forget about it all day, but for me, I can't do that. There's also a whole lot of brand new skin cancer studies out there. I go to the Sunscreen Symposium, which is every other year in Florida, and it's a really great educational tool to just learn what's going on with the FDA, learn what's going on with everything. So I go to that every other year, and it's always interesting to me to sit there and hear all the new research coming out in skin cancer and how straight up zinc titanium sunscreens really need to be combined with a chemical sunscreen to be incredibly effective. Like you can't just have a chemical they're like, you can have just a chemical sunscreen and be very effective, but these mineral ones really do a lot better if you can combine them with chemicals, and then you have more of a barrier. So, you know, you think about zinc and titanium, that's a barrier between you and the skin, your skin and the sun. The chemicals are actually reflecting the sun. They're not
Right.
A barrier, so to speak. I'm trying to think of how to say this without losing people. But yeah, I think as we go forward, you're going to start to see a lot more of these combinations, so-called combination sunscreens, especially since zinc feels really bad on your on your lips, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah, we've been down that road, right?
Right. Right.
Like,
It's why people. Yeah. It's why we just. Yeah. You can put
mm-hmm.
the chalk on your lips if you want, but for me, that's no longer ChopSaver. It's not the ChopSaver experience that we're looking for, which is why we've always had the chemical sun blocker.
Right. You lose that that moisture skin protection that
Right.
ChopSaver stands for.
Right.
So it's, you know, that's a very brand specific sensory thing. I can't imagine playing a trumpet with zinc on my lips.
Well, right. Yeah.
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 Exactly. What? So, believe it or not, we're almost half an hour into this, and I don't want to take too much of your time, and maybe we'll do this again at another point in the future. But let me ask you this: two final questions. One, what excites you? What part of your job you like the troubleshooting or creating something new, or what really gets you excited when someone says, "Hey, Tammy, I've got."
I enjoy it all, Dan. Like for me, I mean, I'm always a little bit disheartened when somebody calls me to troubleshoot something that's happened in manufacturing, because it means a brand is struggling. So it does light a fire, but it lights a fire because you're worried that, you know, if you don't solve this, that it means real income for somebody.
Right.
New raw materials are always fun because you don't know what they're going to do. So sometimes that gets very exciting. So we do a lot of that, but I don't know. I think it's really fun to create something new for people, like a new experience. Some of the new formulas that are coming out to try to make have people interact differently with a product, they're a little out there and maybe kind of too trendy, but there's things like powdered lotions where you have to add water in your hand and make your own lotion, or that type of thing. Those are always interesting. But you know, yeah, so I think for me, like some of the new tech is fascinating to work with, but maybe some of it's out there. I will kind of do myself a disservice, I guess, if I don't mention the personalized side of cosmetics that's starting to come out. So there's this new trend, and people have probably seen the brands Function of Beauty, Formulate, and Prose. And I actually work with Formulate, and that is where they're actually personalizing each and every product that goes out the door.
Wow.
For individual use. Those are shampoos and conditioners right now, moving into skincare soon. So that's exciting because you have to think about it from a whole new angle, right? So you have to think about how are you going to develop this, not for the average consumer, but for the individual consumer. So that's a special challenge. So it kind of goes along with the new raw material side of the world, but it also adds those other challenges. So you're talking about kind of traditional type products, but now you're thinking about how you're going to make them different. So normally brands tell the consumers what to expect, but in those brands' case, the consumer's telling the brand what they expect. So it kind of flips it on its head.
So the consumer is saying, I want it to have this and this and this, and then they literally make them a custom product line.
Yeah. So that gets a little bit, it's tricky, right? Because you can't have infinite raw materials.
Right.
So you have to create those different sensorial, different expectations with a limited number of materials. And so that's kind of probably right now the most exciting thing that I play with in my wheelhouse. But I don't know. I still enjoy, just a good, I want a great lip balm that's just going to be amazing. I mean, they're still fun. It's just that there are a lot of challenges with personalized because you're thinking about what the consumer's real needs are going to be.
Wow, that could be a whole. I mean, I assume this is not a cheap product for the consumer when you're.
No, they're pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, looking at, I think it's $50 for a 12-ounce set. So that's $50 for 12, for a set of shampoo and conditioner. I make them myself and take them home. So I haven't purchased my own, haven't purchased anything yet
Right.
from Formula. I should probably do that. But it just, like I said, it just makes you think of things differently. You've got to think about all the challenges from a manufacturing standpoint. There's some challenges in that.
Mm-hmm.
From a quality standpoint, what are your challenges? How are you going to achieve viscosity? How are you going to achieve pH checks at the end? So there's the manufacturing of that is actually, quite fascinating.
I can.
And yeah, so that Formulate's plant is in St. Louis. So, sometime it'd be kind of fun maybe to meet you down there.
Yeah.
Maybe we could put a deal with ChopSaver.
Yeah.
Put
Cool.
it in our skincare boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So final
Yeah.
question. If you could say something to the general skincare product consumer right now,
Yeah.
what do you think, what do you wish more people knew or were aware of when they're buying things or just general skincare? I don't think people think of their skin as like an organ, but it is really the largest organ in the body. And it covers everything. And it's more important than people realize, I think.
Well, the biggest thing that I think, especially with a pandemic out there, is the biggest thing I can tell people is the health of your skin is the most important thing for fighting disease. So if your skin, your lips, like your skin in general is not healthy enough, there's a microbiome that lives on it. And that microbiome is very effective at controlling the intake of pathogens through your nose and mouth and eyes and ears and anywhere, any other openings that you have. So when you think about that, if your skin has a rash on it or is too dry or, doesn't have, you have a lot of acne or something like that, that means that your skin is also not able to fight off as much of those pathogens that you run into every day. So it's critical, skin health is critical to your overall well-being. And, if you're having problems with it, you should probably see somebody about it or look at your, what else you can do for your skin health. And I think the biggest thing that we're seeing right now too is there's the big push to all organic products. One of the most, and you have a lot of organic ingredients. There's a difference between organic ingredients and USDA organic products, okay? USDA organic products means that I can't formulate with anything other than things that have a USDA organic seal. Natural or products that use organic ingredients, like they might highlight, you know, made with organic, whatever, sunflower oil or whatever. Those products, basically what those brand owners did, and one of the reasons why I love working with you is, you know, you basically sat there and went, look, I want to create the best products for my consumer that are really going to give them the best start for their skin every day. And when I do USD organic products, one of the hardest things to do is deal with that portion, is how am I going to make this very limited ingredient product be as good and healthy for your skin as something that isn't all organic.
Yeah,
because
interesting.
it isn't healthy. Yeah, it isn't healthy to just smear coconut oil on your skin. I mean, we've seen this over and over and over again in our industry lately, where people think that they can just treat their skin with one thing, and they do it, and then, you know, they experience, I have tons of images right now of hair that has been sent in from consumers that shows breakage because they thought they could just use coconut oil as their hair conditioner, and then it caused a lot of breakage. It caused, especially if you have curly hair. So we see this over and over and over again, and you know, the best moisturizers really are a combination. And you know, it's fine to highlight organic ingredients. I think that's great, but wow, you can do so much more for somebody's skin if you can get out of that realm. Which, you know, I mean, you know, their SPF is a good example of, I want the best SPF product for somebody's lips, right? You know, you have a really good, as a matter of fact, we use it. You know, we put quite a few people onto it because it's so effective at, you know, for those of you who don't know, I show horses in my spare time. And so we put a whole lot of people onto it because when you're showing horses, you're out there in the sun and the sand, and it's like being on a beach all day long. So, you know, it's very effective for that.
Cool. Very cool. I can't believe it. We're 40 minutes in. We're gonna wrap up this session. I have a feeling this will not be the first. You are a wealth of information. We'll promote this a little more in the future and maybe get more questions from people other than just me, but I think you touched on some really, really important stuff, things that I want to think about, and maybe we'll address at a future time.
Well,
so,
you know, I love just, you know, chatting with you anyway. You and Noelle are, you know, great to just hang around with. You guys have really interesting things you're doing over there too, so.
And I'd love to see your place now that you've survived the
the duration.
The hurricane, the Midwest hurricane from hell.
Yeah, you don't want to see my house. Well, yeah, so we're living in a camper. The lab is intact. I mean, we could do a quick tour. I don't know, does Facebook shut you off at 45 minutes?
No.
Or not?
No, I just didn't want to be, you know.
You just didn't want to be like, so you guys got to be like a little bit nice to me because I didn't plan on tour, but
oh, well, that's okay.
So we have a lot of equipment. So this is our handy microscope. We do a lot of things like looking at anhydrous formulas, those oil formulas, and checking them for stability issues with that. It's probably kind of dark back here, but because Jenny has left for the day, but we keep all of our materials. These are all the different, you know, so we have several racks like this.
Oh, yeah.
So all of the materials are in secondary containment, which is kind of a safety issue. So you can see like, you know, there's micas, these are all different flavors and essential oils from one company, and they're all brought in, inventoried, all their paperwork is here. We can do, I've got to keep an eye on where I'm at. We can do melt point. We have another big microscope.
So I used, I always joke that I was mad scientist in my kitchen when I made ChopSaver, but you really are a mad scientist. You've got all the fun stuff there.
We have all the fun things. Yeah. Viscosity. And then this little tool, I don't know if we've used this yet, but this is a hardness tester. So you can check to see how hard something is over time. Sometimes that's important with things like bath bombs and lip balms, because you need to know your sticks. And this fun little guy, he's not very little. This is a rheometer, so it tells us how viscous something is in different temperature, under different temperature conditions. So it kind of does like phase shifting and things like that. And see, like, here is another whole rack.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we have, I mean, it's ridiculous. Hey, Tammy, how many materials do you have? I have no idea. I would have to.
You were like
my inventory. Yeah. I mean, we could, there's DIYers right now that are probably drooling over this.
Yeah.
And then, we have a few different mixers. So this one is our problem child. Sometimes he just takes off and really mixes. We don't know why. But this one is a high shear. As you know, we use high shear for ChopSaver. So this is one of our high shear mixers.
And shearing is just another fancy word for mixing, right?
Yeah, only it's cutting the particle to a specific size.
Gotcha.
So that you're making a better mix. And then we have our regular good, steady eddy, high shear mixer. Yeah, and then we have various scales, pH meter. It's a mess back here. Sorry, guys. This is our new toy. It's a heated vessel that we can put. It's got its own stir in it, so we can heat things and to different temperatures based on whatever. And then this is the surfactant shelf. These are all different, like if you want to make a shampoo or conditioner, these are all the different surfactants. I mean, just to kind of not overwhelm you, but there's a lot.
What's that, surfactant?
Yeah, so the things that make soap, essentially. I mean, people think of soap, bars of soap, but those are, base surfactants make the suds and all those things.
So next we're going to talk about all the, what makes suds, what makes soap, what makes a balm, the difference between a balm and a lotion versus a cream, all these things you and I talk about, but I think would be interesting too.
I love that kind of stuff. So we can certainly do that.
All right.
But if somebody has a question, they want to just type it on the comment section. We can try to answer it as we see them come up.
Or if they do it in the future.
Yeah, I was going to say in the future, we can kind of keep an eye out. I mean, you can always let me know.
Because I can. Yeah, I'll post this on. I'll post this. This will end up on the blog, on the website, and I'll keep it on Facebook. I might even put it on YouTube as well. So, yeah, that would be awesome.
Wow, another platform.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it was great talking to you. Let me know if you have anything that you need. I know I owe you some samples of things.
Oh, don't worry about that. We'll talk about that.
All right.
All right.
Excellent.
Take care now.
We'll talk to you later. Yep.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.